Hey everyone, this is Keith Scott from out in Sydney, Australia. I'm one of the voices of Bullwinkle J. Moose. It's time to watch Relentless and Unstoppable. And so give it up for your main hosts, Douglas Kenny and Andy McPhee.
Hey everybody, this is Doug Kenny and welcome to Relentless and Unstoppable. We have another amazing guest coming on the channel today, so please hit like and subscribe. And after this episode, please stay tuned to the RNU channel for more amazing guests. Let's get this on!
Hey everybody, how you doing? Just a quick little share of why I started Relentless and Unstoppable. It was for one very simple reason, because of Doug Kenny. Nothing to do with me at all, zero. I was just coaching Doug, and he took on the coaching and mentoring, and he made all the changes. He took all the suggestions from his parents as well as my coaching, but it was all about Doug, his breakthrough and his weight loss, his willingness to accept that he is dealing with high functioning autism and other issues, but he's never quit, he's never given up. So we did one interview with him to share his story, and then we decided to start interviewing other people. And Doug has now taken over the whole channel, and he does all the interviews, he runs everything. He's just an amazing young man. So RNU was born from simply what an amazing young man Doug is, and his story needed to be shared.
But that's what would happen. You
That's
talk,
awesome. Yeah.
you talk and relate to the Muppet. You wouldn't relate to the
Yeah.
Muppet. So
It's really cool. Yeah.
it's so funny that sometimes I'd say, "Who are you?" Oh, I'm like at some function when we're all the day's wrapped and we meet at the bar or whatever, and all of a sudden I speak these Muppeteers. It's like, wait, who are you? So
Did you ever meet Frank Oz?
Frank Oz came to work. He came to work for a couple of weeks when we were doing Muppets from Space. So he did like I guess Miss Piggy and a few other characters. He was great. Yeah, he was really terrific. Totally great guy.
Great to hear. Fire away, Brendan.
Alan, when did you start getting into film photography or cinematography? When did you decide to do it? When you're young?
I don't know, did we talk about when I started on the last time we talked?
I think we did, yeah. But you can say it again if you want.
Well, okay. So I was in art school in the early 70s. And there was still a draft going on in Vietnam at that time. I mean, I was always destined to go to college, but I wasn't really doing great because I didn't really like what I was studying. I was studying as a graphic artist, and it wasn't really something I wanted to do. But it was, it was one of the colleges I could actually get into. But I took a film class, and that changed everything. Suddenly, my whole world flipped upside down. Now, I mean, I was getting great grades in science and math, some of my core classes, just because I was turned on. When you get excited about one thing, it affects everything you do in life. And so the fact that I found this new medium that was just perfect for me, because I always loved taking pictures, and I was an artist, so I understood composition and color and light and all that stuff. So that did it for me. That completely changed. So I changed colleges. I went to the University of Massachusetts that had a sort of a building film department at the time. It wasn't very big in production, but it was very good for it had a lot of film courses that were offered. When I finished there, I had a choice. You could either go to New York. Now in Massachusetts, you had places you could go. You usually go to a big city. So you go to New York, but New York at that time in the early 70s was still mostly doing commercial work and documentaries. I mean, there were a lot of big features being done there, but they were done by a very small core group of people, and it wasn't like Los Angeles. If you want to get into narrative filmmaking, you went to Los Angeles at that time, which is what I wanted to do. So I went to Los Angeles, and I made contacts where I can. I did a lot of freebies at AFI because that was a great place to meet people and make connections, which I did. And one of the connections that really paid out was meeting a fellow there, an AFI fellow named Stephen Posey. And Steve Posey, I gaffed his final film that he shot at AFI, and we kind of stayed in touch. And it's funny, like I run into him like every 3 years or something, and every time I ran into him, it would be some momentous leap in my career, and it's just through knowing him. So the first time that I ran into him was I got hired, and he had a lot to do with hiring me I got to work on the most dangerous film ever made. You guys know what movie that is?
Roar.
Yeah. So we talked about this, right?
Yeah, but you
Yes,
can mention
yeah.
it again.
Yes.
Brendan hasn't heard about it yet.
All right. Well, Roar is ostensibly the most dangerous movie ever made. So you had around 300 large exotic cats that we were working with. They were raised. A lot of them were raised or saved by two people, a guy named Noel Marshall and his wife, Tippi Hedren. Tippi Hedren was a very famous actress in the throughout the early mid-60s. She did The Bird. She did what else did she do? She did a couple of Hitchcock movies, I think. Anyway, so she I think it was Marnie, maybe. She did Marnie. Does that sound right?
I think so, yeah.
Anyway, so they were saving cats, and they kind of got this idea about this film, and so Tippi got her daughter Melanie Griffith to be in it, and Noel, who had 3 sons, 2 of them, he put them in the film. So they sort of didn't have a choice. The third one said, "I'm having no part of being in front of the camera." So he ended up being the production designer for this film. And so what they did is they had this big ranch about 45 minutes north of Los Angeles in the canyons,
Yeah.
and they built this ranch, and they put together this sort of story of this person who studied big cats, who thought that big cats could a lot of different different kinds of cats could coexist together, right? So he has this big ranch out in the middle of Africa, and his family comes to visit, and he goes to the Bush airport to meet them, but they cross paths, and they're already on a bus on the way out to where the compound is with all the cats. So they have to spend like a couple of days with all these cats, not knowing anything and being completely terrorized by these cats. The whole premise is that the cats are benevolent, which is totally stupid, but it was a bad premise. But the film has a sort of certain unique feel to it. In other words, you have these scenes where you have like 8 or 10 fully grown female lions fighting each other, trying to get to Noel so that they can jump up on him and lick his face, because they were all his babies. I mean, he raised all these cats, right? So there was a certain element that they could bring into that. So I get hired to go on this movie, and I go up there, and through a series of circumstances, I was just trying to get into any kind of camera work because that's what I wanted to do. And when I went up there, I was going to be working as a B camera second assistant, because they were going to start using a B camera a lot. And because there had been a very serious accident, one of many, there was a serious accident where the cinematographer, a guy named Jan de Bont, who went on to be a very top-end premier cinematographer and then director later in Hollywood. He had a big accident with one of the cats, and kind of got his scalp ripped open by his cat. And so the day that I arrived there was the day that they were carting him out. And I ran into Steve Posey, who had helped bring me on. And, I'd gone down the previous 3 days to Panavision on his suggestion to learn like the camera, and this was a huge thing for me. Oh my God, all I've been working with was, being a loader on maybe 2 shows, but mostly just working as an electrician in any jobs I could get, working non-union, roughing it around Los Angeles for 3 years, banging around Los Angeles. And here's this opportunity. So I went to Panavision to learn how to load the Panaflex camera. And the Panaflex, oh my God, this is this incredible system. The Panavision Panaflex camera, which had only been out for 4 years, was this entire complete system. It was unbelievable. It was the Mercedes Benz, the Rolls Royce of cameras. Anyway, so I was going up there to be the second assistant for B camera. Happy to do it. Couldn't wait to do it. But the entire camera department had quit after the accident, except for Posey. And Jan wanted Posey, and in fact, he was yelling at it as he was walking out, wanted Posey to continue on shooting. He wanted to keep on shooting while the weather was still good, while it was still holding, because this is October. And by the end of mid-December, we'll have lost all the leaves. We knew that we were going to have to go on hiatus and pick it up again in the spring. And so he felt we needed to keep on shooting despite the accident and all that. And so Posey's, I'm hearing, and I didn't know anything about the animals at all. So I go up there, I'm hearing all these weird sounds. I'm seeing a guy bringing an elephant out of a big barn, and seeing this guy being carried out, with bandages on his head, and the ambulance with the lights flashing, all that. And I go, Steve, what the heck? He goes, no, I know. And then the lions are starting to roar. And I go, wait, what's that sound? Go, no, I know. No, what is that? Are those lions? Yeah, all right. And so he tells me what happens. I go, oh shit. So he's thinking I'm thinking, what am I doing here? This is crazy. And he goes, so they want to keep on shooting. We don't have a crew right now. I think I can call in a couple of favors for some people to come in as a load or stuff. But do you want to be the first assistant on a camera while we get started again? Never done it in my life. Thought I was going up there to be B camera second assistant, and I said, hell yeah. So it was an opportunity that fell into my lap.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So, but it was really learning under the gun, and it was okay with Steve. And so for 3 weeks we're doing around. I'll give you a funny story. The very first day we started shooting, the following week, I think that was a Thursday, Friday. So they wanted to take the weekend to reassess what they're going to do and all that. Steve needed to find some more crew and all that. And the word had already started going out about how this film was kind of a dangerous thing, and a lot of people were just deciding, hey, we're not going to do that. So that following week, I report, and for that the next 2 weeks, we're on this raft. They built a whole kind of a river, and they had the river house and a big lake, and that was all man-made, all made for this, right? And so we're on this pseudo river, and the camera's on a raft, and hard tied is the canoe that the family's in. So you've got the the 2 boys, you got Tippy, and you got Melanie, right? Mm-hmm. And they're on their way ostensibly to the river house, right? Mm-hmm. We're trying to get this scene because the whole idea of the scene is that there's all these tigers in the water, and they're all trying to leap up on to the canoe, okay? But the tigers, they had gotten a few shots previous, but they stopped doing that scene because they wanted to get this other scene, which is one that Jan got his head bit open by a female lion. I don't know what the circumstances were, but they had to do it. Then they wanted to come back to this. So we're back to this scene. I'm there now. I'm trying to load in my lap with the camera, and Steve's hand holding on the raft, and none of the tigers are jumping into the canoe. They can't. The animal handlers are trying to get the tigers to go into the canoe. No, they're not doing that. They're all trying to climb up on the raft. and the animal handlers are trying to bat them down and say, no, trying to get them, because these are not trained animals, okay, but they're just kind of maneuvering the cats and trying to get them to do stuff by, luring them with meat and whatever they can, and just out of rote habit and things that they know that would naturally attract a lion or a tiger or whatever. No, all the tigers are trying to climb up on the raft. So after about 2 days of this, I'm saying, what the heck is going on? Why are these freaking tigers trying to climb up on the raft? And I'm getting frustrated because I'm trying to concentrate on this and I'm trying to learn my job at the same time. And they go, well, because they're interested in the new guy. And I said, well, who the fuck is the new guy? You are. And everybody started laughing. And the person who said you are was Tippy Hedren. She goes, you are. And that's how the cats are. They're crazy like that. They're so freaking smart. And they wanted to check out who this new person was. They knew that I was a new person. They knew it.
Yes. Mm.
Freaky, right? I mean, freaky. And you know what it's like playing with a cat in your house, right? You know how smart they are. They're like tricky and they're smart and they get things figured out. Well, big cats do the same thing. There's really not a lot of difference. So anyway, so that was my first thing. So that film went on for 4 years. But it just so happened that I worked on that film during a period that was called an open season, because it was pretty much impossible to get into the union. It was a closed shop. It was basically a catch-22. You couldn't work on a union show unless you were in the union. The only way you could get into the union is if you worked 30 days on a union show. And you can't work on a union show unless you're in the union, right? So it's this kind of stupid thing. I mean, the way that people did get in is you were the son of a son, or your best friend was the son of, and get your job, as a loader in the studio, or you were on a film that signed a contract, so you grandfathered into the union, stuff like that. But short of those options, or you worked on a commercial company got to know it. Short of those, and that's how the union regulated very tightly who was going to get in. But finally, there's a class action suit put out against the union, which won. And so what the way that they dealt with is that the union had this open season. So if you work 30 days for one film, or if you work 90 days on another film, that could be union or non-union, you could get into the union in that capacity. And so it just so happens that the first 30 days that I worked on that show was the last 30 days of the open season. So I literally got in just at the right time. But the producer, Noel Marshall, dangled that carrot in front of me for 4 years. Said, all right, well, you're in the union. I mean, you'll get in the union, but I'm not signing the papers till you finish the movie. So that was his way of getting me to stay on the movie. So I worked on that movie for 4 years. And, but there was only a handful of us, I think, by the end, who had actually stuck it out from beginning to end. Steve Posey, I don't think he came back the next year. No, he didn't. He just was in that fall. So what happens when Jan came back, I started working as Jan's first assistant. And then the next spring, and then I also started operating a C camera in that fall. So here I am, from having had literally almost zero experience to operating a C camera on this movie. And then the next season, I started operating regularly on B camera. Jan gave me a lot of great opportunities, which I took advantage of. And then towards the end, I think on the third year that we were working on the film, we introduced using some Steadicam. And so I went down to Panavision for 3 weeks and studied the Steadicam and practiced with it. They paid me to go down there and do it. And so I did some shots on Roar with the Steadicam. And then when we finally wrapped the movie and I got into the union, got my papers, I couldn't get a job anywhere because there was this, the head of the union, the business rep, had it out for all the open season kids who got into the union that way. So he told everybody, these people are blacklisted. He was a real jerk.
Gee, that's all we have for Relentless and Unstoppable. So tune into the next episode to hear more amazing stories from amazing guests. This is Keith Scott from Sydney, Australia, saying so long, and I'm smarter than the average bear. Chee.